This is the Retirement Key Podcast with Justin Dobak, financial advisor of Abish Financial Services.
Welcome back to the Retirement Key. I'm Casey, and I'm joined again by Justin Dobak, financial advisor with Abish Financial Services. And today we are tackling one of the biggest and most emotional retirement decisions that people face.
Big time.
And that is their housing. Should you stay put? Should you downsize? Should you go to renting? Justin is going to break it down for us. But before he does, if you want to dig deeper after our episode today, we invite you to visit us. We're at theretirementkey.com. It has got lots of resources and ways that you can get connected with us. So definitely check it out. And Justin, let's you and I talk housing. Housing decisions are surprisingly emotional. It's maybe you wouldn't suspect it to be, but they are. And they're also one of the biggest line items in a person's retirement. So when you're helping your clients decide, what's the very first question you ask them when it comes to their housing?
So high level, all right? As you actually really well said, Casey, there are two sides to the decision. There is an emotional side of the decision, and there is a financial side of the decision. And that holds true for most decisions in life. But the house is incredibly prevalent, okay? Emotionally, you probably have lived in that home for 2 decades, 25 years, 30 years maybe, okay? You have a lot of attachment to that, all right? You probably also have a lot of equity in that house. And as my parents did, born and raised here in Northern Virginia. Northern Virginia has changed a lot in 30 years of living here, and it's now a suburban metropolis, okay? My parents, the moment they retired, they wanted to get the hell out. And they did that, moved down to North Carolina, okay? But where? What, how much, why, okay? Their why was real, is I want to get the hell out of Northern Virginia. I want to go to somewhere beautiful, somewhere closer to the beach, okay? If that's something that interests you, let's have that conversation. Financially, all right, their situation is different. I'm going to pick on a John and Jane Doe, okay? A lot of times, folks who I build portfolios, plans, strategies for, they have, on the bigger side of assets, and they might not need to touch the equity of their home, all right? And that's where we start talking about, hey, and this isn't a conversation today, but maybe renting that existing house. But side conversation for today, if they want to sell that house, all right, I look at it two ways. I like looking at it from a financial standpoint and a cash flow standpoint, all right? If we're to downsize, a lot of times if they have big equity in the home and it's all paid off, they no longer have a mortgage, all right? And now they're living in a new location. Now they have a big bucket of money that's supplemented to the portfolio. Well, what does that lifestyle look like? I like illustrating that. I also love illustrating a baseline scenario, which is, hey, here's what it looks like if you don't downsize, if you don't move away, if you don't sell the house. Here is what's possible. And we're also going to talk about the potential of renting a home, right? Which, simply put, adds a lot of flexibility to lifestyle. You are not tied down. One day you can be in, Arizona. The next year you can be in Florida. The next year you can be fly fishing with me in Montana. Right? Lots of flexibility. Okay. But there are problems, pros and cons, lack of equity, etc. So simply summarized, I like looking at it both emotionally, because it's a big lifestyle change, as well as financially. What does it mean for you not necessarily living in a new home, but now having a place that maybe gives you a little bit more income, maybe lower cost of living, etc. Okay?
So I think from there, it usually turns into weighing out the options. So can you talk to us about the pros and cons of staying put and the pros and cons of downsizing or renting, like you were just mentioning, and who tends to fit each of these options best?
100%. Yeah. So I'll go from staying in the home and down from there, right?
Sounds good.
Stay in the home, the baseline case, the obvious pro, no moving costs. Wonderful. Okay.
And
no
those
stress.
have skyrocketed.
Big time. Big time. I know.
Especially when you cross state lines.
Yeah. Talk about my parents going down North Carolina to Virginia, one border. Okay. Moving
Probably
costs
wasn't
for
cheap.
them. No, $10,000 to $30,000.
Wow.
Bam. Just like that.
Yeah.
Humongous. Yeah. Okay. So I had to address that one. All right. Potentially lower housing costs if a house is paid off, right? All we're really paying is property insurance, property taxes, things like that. The cons are, well, you still have ongoing expenses, ongoing taxes. That may be a larger home. Those taxes continue to go up and up and up. as well as probably the biggest con is illiquidity, right? All that equity in the home, well, it's just equity in the home. You don't get to tap that. Of course, if you do a HELOC, which gives you some degree of liquidity, but you are not going to get that chunk of dollars unless you sell. Okay. So obviously now downsizing. Okay. The pros of downsizing is a lot of time that draws a lot of equity to the table. If a home is less expensive than the one you're currently living in, all right, well, now we probably get to swipe out the entire mortgage. Your lifestyle, your expenses go down dramatically, and now you have a lot of probably liquidity to do fun things. Okay. There are cons, though, and going back to that first question is, well, now we have to pay for moving costs. Now we have to potentially have another mortgage. Okay, no, that's not always the case, but what does that increased cost in your lifestyle do to the portfolio? What distributions now need to come from the portfolio in order to sustain a potential new mortgage, etc., as well as the big obvious one is, emotional trade-offs, right? You're now in a new place. You're away from your friends. You are farther away from family. There are non-financial values to those major changes.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of times what I share to my clients, my prospects is, hey, just be cognizant of that.
Yeah.
And lastly, renting, okay? The obvious one is the flexibility, right? You can now be gone in any period of time, buy out a lease for a couple $1,000s even, and boom, you're in the next state. Beautiful. But now you're no longer building equity. And when we start talking about estate planning, all right, we've talked about it a couple times, houses, real estate, brokerage accounts, they all receive a step up in cost basis. If you sell the house, right, you realize a huge tax hit in one single year, okay? And now you no longer have equity. You don't receive a step up cost basis on that real estate, etc. So food for thought. They're all useful. Some of my favorite clients are currently living out of an RV, and I know I joked and said Arizona. They go to Arizona. They go to Colorado, Montana, and every single time I have a meeting with them, I say, well, where are you guys at right now? And it's always a fun chat. So there's pros and cons to everything, and that's basically my job is to illustrate that.
Well, that kind of leads right into relocation. That's another big factor. I know they're constantly relocating, but some people make one big relocation move in retirement. A lot of people chase, tax-friendly states, but we do know that costs are still going to pop up elsewhere. So how do you evaluate the true cost for a client of relocating to a different state?
Yeah, I like keeping it simple. Not going into too much detail, but just think about the maintenance costs, right? Think about the property taxes, the insurance. If you're going to Florida, like a lot of retirees do, guess what?
Hurricane insurance
is going to be a big slap to the face, okay? As well as HOA and condo fees, right? A lot of, let's pick on Florida again. People want to go down to the villages. Think those HOAs are cheap? Hell no.
Probably not.
Do you think those HOAs are steady and will never go up? Hell no.
But I think they're having a lot of fun down there, Justin.
They are having, amen to that. They are having a lot of fun. So be cognizant of that. If you're deciding to go and live on a golf course and you never lived on a golf course before and now you have HOAs and dues and things like that, that is a very large expense and a lot of times can sometimes put stress on a portfolio.
And window replacement costs if you're living on a golf course. Got to think about that.
Exactly. Yeah, you got to watch out for me. I've got that right miss right now. So
you got to watch out for Justin.
Stay away from a right fairway. Yeah, 100%. It's moving costs again, as well as here's a big one, right? The opportunity cost of home equity not invested. All right.
Okay.
So think about that. Now, everything has opportunity costs in life. If you decide to sink all your equity in a home, okay, well, great. Homes have done very well over the past decade. I know that. But let's take a flashback to 2008. What happened in the housing market then? All right. As well as, I want to draw all those dollars equity out of my home and I want to invest in my brokerage account. Great. That's done pretty well over the past 2 decades as well. But what happens if we see another big market crash? Okay, maybe your house assets would be really nice at that moment in time. So it's food for thought, right?
Yeah.
It's just simply there are opportunity costs to everything.
Got it. Well, and then there's also the regret. So what do you recommend to clients to avoid that relocation regret that we know some retirees get, especially that second move problem?
So I have a lot of fun with recommending this. And when folks tell me in full confidence that they want to move, they want to downsize, but Justin, I don't know, and I'm still working right now, and I don't have the time to travel, and blah, blah, blah. Okay, when you do retire, here's what I want you to do. I want you to take 3 to 4 months of expenses and lifestyle, and I want you to try out some places that interest you. Get an Airbnb. Stay for 2 weeks. Live there how you would live normally. Go to the grocery store, go on walks, go play golf at the local municipals, etc.
Yeah.
See how it feels in that particular location, because the worst thing you can do is say, oh, I want to go down to the villages and I want to party and have a blast and and then you get there and you realize you're an introvert and you hate it. And now we want to go back to Tennessee in the Smoky Mountains where it's still tax favorable, but hey, I don't have a neighbor within 50 miles of me. Okay.
Yeah.
Try those locations out. It's okay to be in those go-go years where you spend a little bit more to dip your toes in the water somewhere before you make that big financial decision.
I like that. A little trial run. Makes perfect sense.
Exactly.
I like it. Now, health plays a role too, Justin, even when people feel great today. So how should healthcare access and aging in place factor into a retiree's housing decision?
Yeah, 100%. And we keep on picking on Florida here. I'm going to try to change it up here.
Okay.
In my family, I had a very, very stubborn Oma and Opa, wonderful people, wonderful grandparents.
Of course.
Still very stubborn, okay? And they wanted nothing to do with an assisted care living facility. And until they don't, until the day came where it was not an option. All right? There are great improvements to assisted care facilities, step up facilities that give you full independence, but hey, now you're in a community with a bunch of retirees having a good time, where when that day comes where that is no longer an option, you transition in. And then the next step and the next step, okay? Those are the steps of life. But those have become very attractive, very wonderful things that are sometimes pricey. And that's where the planning side of things comes into play. But it's always something that I recommend my clients do. I really do think it's become very popular in recent years to isolate into retirement communities when you get to that point in life. No longer is the independent individual wanting to live on a 50-acre farm in the middle of nowhere at 85 years old. That has started to die off. It still exists, but it's starting to come down. So if you're interested in having those conversations about, hey, what does that look like for me? How does that impact me financially? Can I afford the downsize? Can I upsize? Should I rent? That's where I love to have those conversations to basically allow you to have the confidence to go and try. Yeah. That's my focus.
Let's close this out with people who have maybe already made a choice. What are some warning signs that somebody's housing decision is maybe becoming a financial strain for them? And what can somebody do if they're already there? Is there a way out?
Yeah, no, totally. There are ways out. And the emotional side of things is always the toughest hurdle. All right, living in a home for 30 years and just thinking, this is my love. I'm going to die here. Understand that it is just a home. All right, it is just an asset at the end of the day. But there are emotional attachments. Be open to the idea of change. Be open to the idea of accessing liquidity in the home. Be open to the idea of even upsizing potentially in retirement. Just have the conversation. See if it makes sense, because a worst case scenario is spouses have their opinion, the other spouse has their opinion, okay? And they never talk about it, and then it boils up to retirement. It's time to make a decision on something. They've got no idea. Then there's friction. Have those conversations proactively. That's my big takeaway.
Absolutely. Well, Justin, this was incredibly insightful, and I feel like an under-talked about factor in retirement. So if you're listening and you're weighing housing decisions, or you want help running the numbers the right way, we would love for you to get in touch with us. Head over to theretirementkey.com, and from there, it's got all the resources that you need to get connected with us. We thank you so much for joining us, and we will catch you next time right here on The Retirement Key. Justin, thanks so much.
Take care, Casey. Nice chatting as always.
Thanks for listening to the Retirement Key Podcast. To learn more about Abish Financial Services, visit theretirementkey.com. Abish Financial Wealth Management is a registered investment advisor with the SEC. Registration as an investment advisor does not imply a certain level of skill or training, and the content of this communication has not been approved or verified by the United States Securities and Exchange Commission or by any state securities authority. The information contained in this material is intended to provide general information about Abish Financial Wealth Management and its services. It is not intended to offer investment advice. Investment advice will only be given after a client engages our services by executing the appropriate investment services agreement. Information regarding investment products and services are provided solely to read about our investment philosophy and our strategies.